Hey everyone, welcome back. So if you've been on the internet for any amount of time, you've probably heard of the channel 5 Minute Crafts. And even if you haven't heard of them, you've probably still seen one or two of their videos. They're a massive channel on YouTube, I think one of the most subscribed at this point, and they also are on pretty much every other platform out there. And what they make are short videos based around doing hacks, if you will, that'll make your life a lot easier and you can do with tools that you might just have lying around your house. Now, the other day I saw a video from one of their sister channels, 5 Minute Recipes, that has to do with coffee hacks. So I thought we would give that a try today, or at least give some of them a try, because I think they have upwards of 30 at this point, so we're just gonna get a couple. But before we dive into today's video, I wanna give a huge shout out to today's sponsor, who is Real Paper. I want to give a huge thank you to Real Paper for sponsoring today's video. Making sustainable choices can sometimes seem daunting, but with Real Paper, it's incredibly easy. Eco-friendly toilet paper and paper towels are delivered directly to you at your house, making it easier to take steps towards a more sustainable home. And what's even better is that there's no sacrifice in quality. It's just as strong and soft, but since it's made of bamboo, you can be guilt-free about harming the earth. Also, if I didn't mention it, they ship directly to your home for free when you subscribe. And even better than all of that, for every roll purchased, Real Paper donates to Soil, a nonprofit in Haiti that's providing clean sanitation for those in need. So if you're ready to get started, Real Paper is offering 25% off your first order when you use code MDC. So click the link below or head over to realpaper.com/MDC and use code MDC to do some good for the environment and potentially make your life just a little bit easier. Okay, so let's jump into this first hack, which is essentially trying to make coffee jelly, which I do want to note is a very real and very, very tasty thing, and it's relevant in a lot of different cultures. But what we have here is not necessarily that. So let's review 5 Minute Crafts video first. So we start off here with gummy bears. Yes, gummy bears, an indeterminate amount of them. And then we put in some water, and then we put in coffee of some sort, which they don't say it, but that is absolutely instant coffee. Do not put coffee grounds in this. And then I guess you dump your sludge into a little tray and then you let it cool down. And then when you pull it out, you have this wonderfully, impossibly smooth coffee gelatin thing that we are going to smoothly scoop out and then dump into a cup of either warm or cold milk, I'm not really sure, and then stir up with a spoon, and it just looks like this, and it looks kind of cool, but will it actually work? So the first thing we're going to start off with, of course, is instant coffee, because we are not using ground coffee for this. Second of all, we will need gummy bears and lots of them. I'm using Haribo because that's one of my favorite brands, and yeah, use whatever gummy bears you'd like to do if you're following along. We'll also need a tray of some sort. I didn't want to risk this ruining one of my sheet pans, so we're using a little plastic tray. Hopefully that's all right. Also, water. I am kind of going for a 1-to-1 ratio initially because that's kind of what it looked like in the video, but you'll see here in a second. So I started off with about 1 cup of gummy bears that looked about right, and then I poured in my water. After giving it kind of a stir, that seems like way too much water to gummy bears, so I had to go in with a second pass, and I just tossed in about another 3/4 of a cup of gummy bears. And I know, I hear you. You're asking, what does the recipe say? Can you give us the weight of it? Can you give us more specific cup measurements? And no, I really can't. This video is kind of a standalone, and they really just say put gummy bears and water together and good luck. Now, I turned up my heat to high, and ultimately the gummy bears did start melting to my amazement. I got this very, very smooth kind of sludgy liquid at the end, so I just dumped in my coffee. I didn't even weigh it. We're really just living on the edge here. We're just trusting the process. So I ended up switching to a whisk to get it fully disintegrated because it had kind of a tricky time melting and fading into that gummy bear mixture, but ultimately it did. So we're taking it off the heat, and now we're going to very, very carefully transfer this very, very sticky liquid into our little plastic container, and I think I'm honestly just lucky that I didn't melt it. I didn't bring this up to a full boil. I think that was really the trick here, but I'm just going to dump in about 3/4 of my mixture, let it settle a tiny bit, and then we're going to stick it in the freezer and then the fridge to get it cooled down quickly. Now, we're going to have to wait a second to see the end of that, so wait till the end of the video. In the meantime, we're going to try out a couple of the other hacks. So the next hack we have looked kind of fun to me. This is an ice cream latte hack, if you will. They did this really, really cute thing where they did like dipped sugar cones. They have this nice hard shell. You're seeing them dump in the espresso, and then I guess just a pile of milk was also in the pitcher. So that went on. I think that's cinnamon. Look, they have some in these wine glasses. That's okay. Anyways, we're not doing that. So moving on to what we'll actually need for this, we'll start off with a bunch of chocolate syrup for our dip cone. We'll also need sugar cones, which are my favorite type of cone, which made me very excited. If you're a cake cone person, no hate to you, those are also delicious, but sugar cones are my jam, so excited about that. Next thing we'll need is a pitcher of some some sort to be pouring our milk very carefully into our cone. Then we'll also be getting an empty water bottle to use as a stand of sorts while our cone dries. You'll also need milk. You can use whatever you want. I had whole milk lying around, so we're using that. First thing we're gonna do is set up our dip cone station, if you will. So I just poured a bunch in there, and then I got my cone dipped, if you will. This was a very, very simple process and quite fun. It kind of feels like arts and crafts. And then it was time for the sprinkle station, because I thought we'd be a little fancy and do kind of a sprinkle cone scenario along with our dip cone. This was so fun. If you ever just want to have an enjoyable time, just go dip chocolate cones into sprinkles. It's great. I could do it all day. Anyways, not to get off track, we are still making a latte here. So go steam your milk and get your espresso, and now it's time to assemble. Very carefully pour your espresso into your cone, and it'll probably spill, but that's fine. 5-minute Crafts didn't show that, but I'm guessing that's part of their process too. Then afterwards, we're going to be trying to pour our milk into our cone, and it's now that I realize that a cone is a very, very difficult shape to pour a latte in. Also, I'd like to note that most cones are not sealed at the bottom, so your latte might come out the bottom a little bit, which is kind of messy, but thankfully today we have a sponsor, and Real Paper was very helpful to help me clean it up. Okay, all right, anyways, moving on, it's time to taste this thing, and eating liquid, if you will, out of a cone is not the easiest thing to do, but it's a latte and it's sugar and it's spilling everywhere. But beyond that, kind of tasty. So would I make this again? Maybe. If anything, this is my favorite hack so far. It's not disgusting, it's just a little bit impractical. So let's move on to the next one and see if we can find something a little bit better. Now for this one, I think we really need to enjoy the 5-minute crafts video because it really tells a story. You have this woman, she's very tired, falling asleep at the desk, and what is she gonna do? She's gonna follow their hack. We're starting out with 120 milliliters of coffee, great, and then we're topping it off with Coca-Cola, because that's the solution, not the coffee, adding the Coca-Cola. And then look at her, she's so happy, ready to go back to work, day solved. Okay, so I think we should try it ourselves to find out if this is truly transformative. Now, I will note that Coca-Cola does have their own coffee cola cans that they've released. So honestly, I think you should just go buy those. But if you're in a Jimmy and you only really have coffee and Coca-Cola sitting side by side, let's find out if you can mix them and if it'll actually taste good. So I'm starting off with a nice batch of cold brew right here, and we're just gonna fill her up with Coca-Cola, and then we'll stick in our straw and give it a taste. Now, the first thing I will say when tasting this is that it is not transformative. It really just tastes like you mixed coffee and Coke together, and it's not bad. It just really isn't any better. It's not more than the sum of its parts. It just kind of is two drinks that kind of are okay together. And also, this is very caffeinated if you look at the caffeine content of Coca-Cola. So I don't know. I think you can skip this one and be fine and just drink the coffee. Okay, let's just keep chugging along. So this next thing we're going to do is making flavored coffee. So we're going to be adding our coffee filter, some ground coffee, and then a nice hunk of cinnamon right on top. And then we're just going to brew our coffee through that. And hopefully we'll get a really nice, naturally flavored, very cinnamony, very, very tasty kind of spiced coffee. At least that is the hope. So we're gonna brew about 4 cups of coffee, and I'm starting off with about 30 grams of ground coffee, and then we're just gonna eyeball the cinnamon. There is no rules today. There are no weights. There are no amounts. We are just going by eyeballing, and that's really fun. So let's just mix it up, and then we'll get brewing. I will say there is something very, very freeing about how approachable these hacks are. They're so chaotic. People are just throwing things in other things and making messes, and it's a whole lot of fun actually. But does it taste very good? Now, this didn't smell like very much, and it didn't taste like very much either. The cinnamon wasn't sweet at all, which was kind of a bummer. It really just was kind of a underline, kind of burnt, dry cinnamon flavor, which wasn't really my favorite. So I think you'd honestly be better adding your cinnamon after it brews and maybe some syrup, but that's just me. Judge for yourself. Wasn't my favorite. Okay, now it is finally time to examine our odd gummy bear jelly that we created about 10 minutes ago. Now, as you can see, it fully solidified, which I was honestly shocked. I wasn't expecting it to do anything it was supposed to do. So we're gonna try to cut it into those nice, perfect little squares, or at least as close as I can get them to, and then we're gonna stick them in some lattes. Now, I wasn't sure whether the temperature of the milk was iced or hot, so we're just gonna do both. We'll compare them side to side and see if one is better than the other. So we have an an iced latte, and then I've also steamed up a bunch of milk to have as a hot latte. Now, I will ask you to remember back to that very first 5-minute crafts video where they very easily just zooped up all of the squares, then just very carefully dumped them in. Yeah, that's not what happened here. This came out kind of in clumps, but you did get some distinct squares, so I'll take what I can get, and I was pretty happy with it overall because I didn't even expect this thing to set up. Now, I do want to mention one more time that this is not a traditional coffee jelly recipe. This, if we will remember, is Haribo gummy bears and water and instant coffee. So I don't know what to expect here, but we're just gonna stir up that hot one, get it melting a little bit, and then we're just gonna give both of them a taste, I suppose. I'm expecting some interesting flavors. I'm expecting them to maybe be a little bit offensive to the palate, but who knows? I'm using a spoon here. We're going into the iced one, and this isn't pleasant. I'll tell you that much. This is kind of a nasty experience of really odd, overly fruity melted gummy bears along with burnt instant coffee. So anyways, we're just gonna move on to the hot one because maybe this hack can still redeem itself. Not by appearances though, we are far past that point. Giving it a sip, and this one was a little bit better. Honestly, melted down into the added fats of the milk, those fruity flavors aren't nearly as strong, and it's mostly just kind of like sweet instant coffee flavor, which wasn't too bad. So the issue was I then decided to continue stirring it, and the more it melted, the worse it got. So you know what? Maybe this is like you give it 2 stirs, you sip it for about 5 seconds, and then you're done with it. Or maybe not. Maybe this hack just isn't very good, and maybe you should go make real coffee jelly. So anyways, that's about as much energy as I have for coffee hacks today. My soul has been completely crushed, and I think I'm just gonna go eat Haribo gummies and spend the rest of my day taking a nap. I might make a second video of coffee hacks when I regain the energy, but we'll see. And until that time, thanks for staying, and I will see you all next week.